Okay, so we've talked about the Mongols and how they came to dominate, at least for a couple centuries, at least the most of the continent of Eurasia. Okay, all the way over to the borders of Poland and into Russia, China, parts of northern India, a good deal of the Middle East. Well, by 1400, the Mongols have gone away and they've been replaced. Okay, they're actually still kind of there. If you look on the map here, you see that you have the Khan of the Golden Horde, the Chagatai Khanate, and the Timur Empire. These are all descendants of the Mongols. They are named after or run by grandchildren of Genghis Khan. Okay, in China, the Mongols have been overthrown, and they were overthrown what has become to be known as the Ming Dynasty, and they did a lot of amazing things. First of all, they're the guys who invent gunpowder, and they use it to drive the Mongols out. They travel at least the whole Eastern Hemisphere, trade extensively, but then they stop. So we're going to look at what went on with Ming Dynasty and how it affected China going forward. All right, so Ming Dynasty. After almost 100 years of Mongol control, the Ming restores China to Chinese control. Okay, well, it's now being ruled once again by Chinese natives, not by Mongols. They bring political and economic growth to China. They end the Mongol rule. They rebuild a lot of the areas damaged by years of war. To rebuild northern China, they moved the capital to Beijing and encourage people to move back north because a lot of the Chinese had moved south under the Mongols to get away from the Mongols. Okay, they reform the government. They bring back the civil service system based on Confucianism. Have to pass a test. Okay, they also set up a board of censors to eliminate corruption. And probably one of the main things the Ming are remembered for, besides Ming vases, are the voyages of Zhang Ha. Okay, and that's how you pronounce that man's name. In the early 1400s, Admiral Zhang Ha established trade links with many distant commerce centers and brought exotic animals back to Chinese zoos. He travels extensively throughout Southeast Asia, across the Indian Ocean to India, and across to the east coast of Africa. There is some evidence that his descendants or his underlings may have sailed around the world because there is some archaeological evidence that shows possible Chinese contact in places like both coasts of South America, as far north as Rhode Island, everywhere but really Europe. Okay, Zheng He dies in 1433. At the same time, a new emperor comes to the throne. And he is influenced extremely by the people at court who are what are called xenophobic. They don't like outsiders. So the emperor bans all out overseas trade, bans all outside contact with anybody else, and they burn this mighty fleet. And I'll get into a little bit about the fleet in a moment. Results in a turn away from international trade and relations that continues until the 19th century, the area that you may be familiar from 8th grade as that period of the open door policy in China, Boxer Rebellion, some stuff you learned about last year that you'll relearn about again in Mr. Fry's class in 11th grade. Because the Chinese think that they are the most advanced culture in the world, they see no reason to be involved with the rest of the world, and they really would like to avoid contaminating their culture any further with outside influence. Okay, and this lasts, like I said, for over 500 years, or close to 500 years. These are the voyages of Zhang Ha. Okay, all the red lines show you all the different places he went to over the course of roughly 30 years. Now, what's so amazing about these Chinese ships is how advanced technologically they were and how advanced in size they were. This shows you a Chinese ship, which is the larger of the two, compared to what the Europeans were building at the time. Actually, the Europeans started building sometime after the Chinese. Many of these Chinese junks were 300 to 400 feet long. They had watertight compartments. They had crews of nearly 1,000 men on them to man these sails, and they were extremely seaworthy. And they sailed the trade routes of the Indian Ocean and the Eastern Pacific, trading, collecting treasure for the Chinese. It's an amazing accomplishment. Okay, so the Chinese are way advanced, and if you could imagine just how far ahead the Chinese were from the rest of the world at this point in time. If they had continued along that plane, it may have been Chinese dominating the world and not Europeans. So this is a major factor in the development of the world when the Chinese in 1433 shut the door and go home. Okay, so the Ming did have many advancements in a lot of areas. Agriculture for China, they figured out better ways to fertilize crops so you could grow more food and feed more people. They imported corn and sweet potatoes from the Americas, which further improved food production. In industry and trade, they used new technologies to increase manufacturing productions. Things like porcelain, tools, paper thrive in Chinese cities. They also repaired the Grand Canal that had been built earlier to improve the transportation infrastructure of China. And then there's arts and literature, which is some of the areas that they're most known for, especially these Ming vases down here on the left side. Okay, they developed new styles of painting and creating porcelain jars and vases. So as opposed to elsewhere in the world where the big pottery is big, heavy, clunky clay pots, these are very fine, thin vessels, but they're just as sturdy. Okay, Chinese silks, very popular with Europeans. Confucian scholars produced poetry, other popular fiction, and dramatic artists developed new art forms that combined drama, music, and dance. Okay, so in class, we will be going over a little bit more depth on Zhang Ha and some of the other Chinese advancements. Make sure that you have taken good notes on this so that you're able to refer back to them.